So when I was closing, I always wondered about pre-handling objections. Like, do I focus on handling objections at the end of a sales call after I pitch, I drop the price, and then I have to handle objections because I would see all this training on that? Or do I focus on trying to pre-handle everything and get my sales calls to a point where I won't get any objections? Which one is the best? And this question was very important for me as a closer because I was severely limited in my income. Every month I was making like 2-3K a month maximum in commissions for a while. And I wanted to grow to that, 10K month plus mark that everyone wants to get to. And eventually I got there, but it was through actually the answer to this question, which is yes and no. So in this video, I'm going to break down for closers, should you try to pre-handle objections? Should you try to pre-frame objections, or should you handle them all at the end? There is a right answer and there's a wrong answer to this, but the right answer is not just yes or no. The right answer is yes and no, and I'm going to explain in a lot of detail for you. But first, I want to give you some context as to kind of what gives me the ability to say this. One, I made a lot of money in sales. I was making more than 99% of remote closers, 15K plus commissions months. My highest month was 18K in commissions in February 2024. And the other thing is, for some context, my background actually is that I was a dating coach. So for a very long time, for about 4 or 5 years, I was teaching very advanced psychology and communication and leadership structures to men, guys who had great careers but had never cracked the dating game, where they didn't have consistency in their dating lives. And a lot of people hear this and they're like, you're working with shy nerds. A few of my clients, but most of my clients were genuinely good dudes who had had a girlfriend or two in their lives, but they wanted to, have way more dating options. They wanted to date a bunch of girls. So I taught them how to communicate in a way that would make those connections happen. And what's interesting is I was able to get really good at sales because I had this background teaching dating. A lot of people don't know this about me. So it wasn't like I was this magical student. I invested in a program that trained how to handle objections, and I became one of the best. Actually, at the time I was in it, pretty much the best student in the program, and I started coaching the other guys in the program because they weren't getting enough value from the head coach. So I actually was able to take everything that I learned in terms of dating as a dating coach and bring it into sales, which allowed me to make money way faster and then teach this at the highest level. So I'm going to explain to you the psychology of objection handling, and I'm going to explain to you why the answer is yes and no. The first problem you need to understand, and just to set the stage here, as I like to do in my videos, is most sales pros right now are taught to pre-handle objections as a defense mechanism, okay? A defense mechanism meaning that they're taught to pre-handle objections because they want to avoid having a tough conversation at the end of their call. So we're already starting off not in a good place. If you're saying, I want to pre-handle objections because this will make the end of my call easier, I get it, I understand it, I get it, but there are closers, myself being one of them, and a lot of the guys that I train, closers like myself, who are able to handle objections cleanly and purely at the end of their sales calls. So you give me some objections, someone tells me, hey, I need to think about it because I've done a program like this before, I'm going to cook them, and I'm going to close them. And it'll take me maybe 10 minutes to do it, maybe 15, maybe if it's a tough prospect, 20 minutes, but it's possible. So what happens is you have this whole group of closers coming into the industry trying to avoid having a tough conversation at the end of the call, which is never a good starting point. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of problems that you need to understand, and I will give you the answer, a proper solution for how to get really good at this. And yes, to an extent, you should pre-handle objections, but you don't want to start with pre-handling objections, and I will explain all of it. So a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, the first idea is objection prevention is not a bad idea. Okay, I'm not against objection prevention. That's what they call it, preventing objections. I don't think it's a bad idea, to be clear. The problem, though, is that most sales pros don't actually know what they're doing when they're doing objection prevention, right? So let's say that you get someone, you're running discovery, let's say you're selling fitness. You get someone and they're like, yeah, and the reason I really haven't done much is because I had a fitness program, kind of like what it seems like what you guys do, and I was really burned by this in the past. What a sales pro might do, if you're taught to prevent handling objections, is you might say, well, are you ready to commit to a new path for yourself and make changes now and move on from the past? The person says, yes, yay, I handled their objection. No, you didn't. You didn't handle their objection. They quickly said yes to that. Their fear is still going to be there. The reason is because when you give someone a line, in discovery, or like try to reframe the objection in discovery, but you don't understand the psychology actually of what you're doing beyond just a line, you are not stopping them from giving an objection to you. Because when cash is on the line, when there's actual real fear that you're trying to handle, when there's real problems at the end of a call and someone is confronted with, hey, I might have to invest $5,000, $10,000 to change my life, what happens is no line or like piece of script that you gave them earlier is going to supersede, at least most of the time, is going to supersede their fear. It's just not going to happen, because when someone has cash on the line, like their literal livelihood, right, is on the line, just because you gave some witty little line or said something about, and reframed something or tried to handle something, it's not going to literally knock the objection at the water. It just does not work that way. It doesn't work that way. So the problem is, I see a lot of sales pros who are trying to objection handle and prevent objections early on in the discovery process, but it doesn't actually work, and they're wondering, why did I still get the objection? Why am I closing at 25% or lower? The reason is because you're trying to pre-frame things without actually understanding the logic and the psychology of what makes an objection happen. And this is what I call not respecting the game. Now, I'm not going to say that there's not sales pros who do all the pre-handling stuff and, close at a decent rate and make money. There's always people who could prove me wrong on an individual case-by-case basis. But I've seen that more often than not, that's not the best path to get good. And a lot of people who do that end up performing subpar. Even if they stay on an offer for a little bit, maybe you're not going to get fired, immediately. I'm not going to say that. But it's just not the way to make the most amount of money. Give me a guy who can, or a gal who can pre-handle objections, or who can handle objections when they pop up, versus someone who tries to prevent objections and tries these little weird lines to prevent objections. The person who knows how to handle objections is always going to outperform the person who tries to pre-handle. That's a fact. It's not a question. Like, that's a genuine, like a literal fact, okay? And I'll give you some more insights. Trying to pre-handle objections is a very low leverage play unless you are already good at handling objections. Because right now, what I'm doing is I'm laying out the case for why you should not focus on pre-handling objections. But in a second, I'm going to tell you why you can pre-handle objections. But it's a very important progression, like a step-by-step process for how you do that. So trying to pre-handle objections is a very low leverage play. Because again, if you don't know how to actually handle objections when they're presented at the end of a call, whatever you're trying to do to pre-handle them is probably not going to be very good. So again, a prospect who has a large degree of fear, if you don't actually know how to handle a proper fear objection, let's say fear of the past or the fear of themselves or like fear of the company, they don't trust you. Let's say that you don't know how to handle that properly at a high level. Why would you be able to handle it in discovery? Like, it's the same objection. So what will happen is, and again, I see it with calls I review from a lot of sales pros, they'll get an objection that comes up at the end, and they're like, I tried to pre-frame it at the beginning, and then it just gets you thrown off of your discovery. You start getting into a weird conversation about the past. It just doesn't help put you in the best position to succeed. And I know you want to succeed because I was in the same position. I wanted to make a bunch of money, and I couldn't. I'm going to give you a really good solution. I'm going to give you a couple of, I have written here 4 things, kind of a pathway that you can take to actually get very good at objections and then learn how to pre-handle objections. So number 1, and this one you're not going to like probably, maybe you will, but I would guess a lot of people won't like this, is stop avoiding objections. Just start with that. Stop avoiding objection handling. It's the highest leverage skill that you can learn as a beginner sales pro. That's it. Like, you should stop avoiding handling objections. Learn how to handle them. Learn how to go into a conversation where someone says, this is great, I love it, but I want to think about it and run it by the wife. If they do that, you should be able to handle it. You should be able to go through that, identify the logic of where they're coming from, and create what we call a responsibility framing and get them to buy. That should happen. That needs to happen. You need to learn how to do this. Because very, very few sales pros can do this. Even your favorite coach. There's very few coaches that I know online. There's a couple of them who can do this, but most coaches that I've seen, even some of the ones that you look up to that are like the more popular guys in the space, the people that I respect who made way more money than me, by the way, but a lot of them do not actually understand the psychology of handling objections. I'm not going to get into why that is, and I'm not talking shit. A lot of these coaches have made way more money than me. I'm not some like big guy who's made tons of money. I'm not, straight up. I mean, I've done quite well for myself, but not to the extent of maybe some of the bigger names. That's for sure. Eventually I will be there, but for now, it's a journey, and I'm in the beginning part of my journey. But a lot of these guys don't understand the psychology of handling objections. They don't understand where the objection is coming from in terms of the psychology of the fear. They don't understand that. So they don't teach it, right? Because it's just very difficult to understand it and teach it. Actually, it's hard. I'm not even saying it like oh, you should just learn it, because you should do it. It's actually very hard to learn it, and you can make money in sales if you get a good offer and you know how to communicate and you're decent. You can like make decent cash. But it just requires luck to be in that position. I would rather you not rely on luck and rather you rely on skill set, get super, super good, get on a decent to good offer, and make 10, 15K or 20K plus per month and give freedom to yourself and your family and live the life you want. Genuinely, that's what I want for all of you. So you've got to stop avoiding objection handling and understand that it's literally the highest leverage skill that you can learn as a beginner sales pro. And I'll show you the progression we have. So our training process, I'm not here to sell you anything, but in our protocols training program, which is like the best freaking skill set training program on the market, there's no program that I've seen at least that's better than ours. And I made it this way on purpose because I was in all the other training programs. So our protocols program, we have a skill set ranking. It's ranked from level 1 to level 5. Level 1 is a complete beginner where you don't know and you've never even like been on a role play at all. That's level 1. Level 2, 3, and 4, and 5 is like 5 is the top. 5 is a complete absolute sales wizard expert. You're a killer, right? Like one of our guys, he closes for us. My guy Joe, he did our program. He's like level 5, and he's one of the better guys I've ever seen at sales. You can't trip him up. He always knows where to go, right? So our training process is like this, and you can apply this to your own journey. I'm not saying this to say you have to do our program. I'm not selling you anything here, but just here's an idea of like what the journey looks like. So from level 1 to 2, someone who's a complete beginner in sales, or like someone who just got into the industry, and all the way to level 2, which is one step up from that. You're a beginner, but you know how to hold your own a little bit. Level 1 to 2 is just discovery. We don't look at objections. So at level 1, if you're just getting into this, you should just go into discovery. Or level 2, you start hitting level 2, you start to get competent, you need to get good at discovery. Meaning you should be able to understand the certain frames, the psychology of like how to get commitment from someone, the psychology of how to build a bit of urgency, how to go into someone's consequence or fear, how to go into desire, like, future pace them, which is what is commonly, used in the industry. All of that needs to happen at level 1 too. So if you're a beginner in sales, if you're kind of just starting out, maybe you're not on an offer, you just need to learn how to run a clean discovery. And I'll show you what I mean, how it sounds. Hey, so when it comes to let's use fitness, when it comes to weight loss, what are you looking for specifically? They answer, okay, very cool. And how have you kind of tried to lose the 25 pounds? Cool, we get that, like what have they done? And what do you feel is holding you back right now? Like what's the biggest thing that's stopping you from being exactly where you need to be? We have that. Okay, and how long has that been going on for? Like how long have you been struggling with this? Time gap. And then we go into, do you feel like if you are doing things this way and you keep this pattern going, a lot of the inconsistency, do you feel like you'll see those results losing the weight as quickly as you would want, or do you feel like there are changes you need to make, small changes or big changes? There we go. That's, getting a commitment gap, like, hey, I need to commit and make changes. Okay, and then like, why now? Why do this now as opposed to putting it off till later, the way like unsuccessful people might do? There we go. And there's more. We have future pace and consequence, fear and desire. But that is discovery. So you need to get this down at the very beginning and like know how to run a discovery cleanly. Then once you hit that level 3-ish, it's like level 2.5, and you need to start working on objections. And for our people that train with me, the hardest part for them to go to is from level 2 to level 3. It's the hardest thing. We've had people who stay in level 2 for like 2 months because it's very difficult to go from 2 to 3, because to get to level 3, at least in the way I train, you have to be very good at objection handling. And that means you have to be better at objection handling than most sales pros in the industry. So like our people, the reason why they perform so well on roles, we've placed 4 people on roles this week. Literally, we placed who got in Ty, Stavros, Michael, and Jordan. And I could be missing someone. I feel like someone else got an offer too. No, I think Henry got on one too. So maybe 5. That's 5 people we've placed on offers this week. And all those guys who are placed on offers are very, very good at objection handling. And they are not level 4 or 5 even in our program. They're not level 4 or 5. 4 or 5 is top levels. But in order to even, for me to recommend you on an offer and be like, talk to someone in my business network and, say, hey, we've got a gal who can close and she's very good or he's very good. The very good means you're very good at objections, right? Because if you started off, hey, I'm trying to pre-handle the objections and make it easy for myself and have a easy conversation at the end, a layup close, like a rollover. Excuse my annoying voice. It just annoys me when sales pros think like this. If you didn't know and you're learning this for the first time, hey, welcome. But, I hear this a lot in the industry. So if you're thinking like that and you were training with me, I'd be like, no, because you're going to get destroyed on any offer that you go on. Because most likely your discovery isn't even going to be good enough. And I'm talking high levels of performance, high levels of performance. None of this corny stuff from all the big like group programs that are popular. I'm not talking about the stuff they do. Like very, very high level performance. If you want to be at that point, you need to be good at objections. So when we place people on offers, they have to be at level 3. If you're not at level 3, we will not help you find an offer. I'm more than happy that if you find your own offer and people are training with us and they're not at level 3, but for me to say you're good enough to close, you have to be at level 3. And level 3 is you have to be very good at objections. Now, once you get past level 3 and you're like master objections, even up to level 4, because our guys at level 4, I'm still training them in objection mastery. Once you get to that point, then after level 4 is what you call full stack. You go into pre-handling objections. And here's where I give you the yes part of the answer. So I gave you the no, like no, you shouldn't pre-handle, but now I'm gonna give you the yes. Once you are good at handling objections, I absolutely believe in pre-handling objections, like 110%. Trust me, dude, like my calls, I do not get objections when I'm closing people. Sometimes I'll get some, especially if the person really struggles with finances and they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. I'll be honest, I'll get some objections then. But generally, if the person's qualified, you know, they've got some cash, like, I will not get objections. The reason is because I pre-frame that shit like crazy. I pre-handle everything. I will pre-handle objections. But why do I do that? And our top guys do that. Charlie does that. Joe does that. I know Amaan does that. Sati does that. Like, all of our top people, Colin, he's a master of doing that. Valeri's doing that now. Like, all of our top people, they pre-handle objections. The reason why is because they have earned it through learning objection handling. Ta-da! There we go. Jabari does this. All right, I want to get everyone's name. Roan's learning this right now. He's one of our level 4 guys. He's learning it. They all pre-handle, right? The reason they can pre-handle, there's like a reason for it. There's a psychology behind it. The reason is because they understand the logic of the actual objections and where they're coming from. So they've earned the ability to have that conversation during their discovery versus needing to wait till later. You understand? So first what happened was, hey, let's just be able to go to war and handle objections when they come up. We're not going to qualify it and be like, oh no, we should try to handle them ahead of time to make it easier. No, we just handle the objections when they come up and fearlessly, done. We handle them. Gangster mode. Cool. Once that happens now, hey, let's have fun with it and actually start setting frames, pre-handling, going into the psychology, getting a little off the script now, going into a new process. And we teach all kinds of processes to like our level 4 guys. We do, 100%, because it's important, right? I want you all to be good. So if some of you who are watching this train with me already, you know what I'm talking about, right? But I'm constantly focused on pre-handling and pre-framing, but only once the objection handling skill set has been built, okay? So here's what I want you to understand. I'll give you 2 more points. There's a point 3 and a point 4. So point number 3 is you have to understand this. This is the progression. Learn your objection handling protocols. Objection handling protocols. That's number 1. What's the exact scripting? How do you run through scripting? What is buy-in, double buy-in, clarification, logic island, emotional crossroads? Learn how to time things. Then understand the objection handling logic. Objection handling logic is the why behind the scripting. The objection handling logic is like why we say certain things. And I see this time and time again. And guys, I talked to a mentor of mine, and he was like, dude, you should be more open with your message and stop kind of hiding yourself. And I'll explain what that means here. And it doesn't mean like I don't make YouTube videos, like I don't like to talk on camera. I love to share value and talk. But a lot of times I'll qualify my statements like I want to talk about things I'm seeing in the sales space, but I won't say them for fear of, sounding like a bit of an asshole. But I'm going to be sharing more what I think. And I'll tell you the truth. I see a lot of you in these sales training programs, these cute little, I'm not going to say the names, but these little programs where they promise you in the marketing, hey, we're going to teach you a high income skill to quit your 9-to-5 job. Thousands of people are doing it online from an hour-long Zoom conversation. And then they teach you these half-baked scripts and lines with cute little psychology. Like, people want to make decisions. Like all these things, like, whatever, like I hear this stuff. I hear all these things from people, from these coaches. I'm telling you, like, they're not teaching you how to be good. They're kind of showing you the case studies, how John went from 9 to 5 to making 10K a month. They all have the case studies like that, but they're not people who necessarily are respecting the game. I'm serious. They're people who have gotten a good position, people who have made good money. So I'm not saying they haven't made money, they have, but it's been because they've been in a good position and they've been put in a position where they could thrive, and they use that that thriving and the cash in their bank account to say, hey, you should work with me. I'm really, really good at sales. But a lot of these people have made money without being very, very, very good at sales. So you're coming into the industry now, which is overpacked and crowded with people. And you're like, I can be like John, making up a random name, but I can be like John. But John, in fact, was friends with some influencer dude, and he started closing for influencer dude and was like the #1 closer for the guy, the only closer he had, or he was like the top one of the first 5 guys, and made a bunch of money because he's the dude's friend. Seriously, that's how it happens. And then you come in and watch his stuff, join his little community, whatever they call it, I don't know. I want to say a name. I know the name I'm talking about. You guys know probably who I'm talking about. There's a bunch of them. And you get into the program and you start doing your little role plays and you're like, bro, we just need more confidence from you. It's not your fucking confidence. Like, straight up. It's not that. It's because you do not have a process. It's because the process you're using is watered down and inefficient. That is what it is. And I'm a process guy. I'm freaking crazy process guy. So let me get back on track. I didn't want to rant, but it just frustrates me because I want to see you guys win. But the objections protocols, you have to use the right scripting, right? And then is the logic. And this is what got me off track, actually. Understanding the why behind the scripting. So one part of it is, yes, learning a script, okay? When you get the objection, do you feel like we can actually help you? Great, that's easy. And why do you feel like we can? That's easy. If they don't say yes, then go negative. You know, that's easy. A bunch of you already know this because I see you guys doing it on my free sessions. But what actually you're missing is understanding the logic behind where the objection is coming from. So if someone says, yeah, dude, I'm taking, let's say fitness again. I take care of my daughter on the weekends. So for me, it's really hard to get to the gym on that extra Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I know that I'm going to need to put in like 4 or 5 days at least. So I'm going to need to think about things just because I do take care of my daughter. Actually, I take care of her 4 days a week if we're being technical with it. So schedule is going to be really hard for me. Great. Okay, you hear that objection, or you hear that statement at least. What do? One thing is clarify. I'm going to get a little technical. Clarify first. What do you mean by that when you say like it's going to be tough? I know you have your daughter and stuff, but what's the schedule looking like? Why wouldn't you be able to work out? I'm just curious to see if there's a way I can help. You get clarity on that. He gives the same answer, but a little deeper, gives more excuses. And then you figure out, does he have the time? Like in terms of time, could you not go to the gym for, let's say, 45 to an hour, at least even 3 days a week? Give or take, you could find a way to do it, I'm sure. There has to be a way to even give it to your future, you know? He would agree, be like, well, I could find the time. Okay, there we go. We have the logical base set. Okay, then why wouldn't you be able to do this now? I'm just asking again to see if I can help. And you dig deeper. A lot of sales pros won't do this. They'll hear the statement and be like, well, man, life is busy. And they'll jump into some kind of scripting that they heard from the coach. But you have to actually understand the logic and the why behind the scripting. That is what we teach and what gets our people really good. And then is tonality. The energy behind the why. Like, how do you actually deliver? We went over this on the free training we had this past Thursday. We looked into, like, I trained one of the guys, shout out Ecomm for coming on. We trained on, like, when you deliver scripting, it needs to sound like it's coming from a place of deep empathy and curiosity. So when I ask someone, when you say you want to go think about it, what do you mean by that? It sounds like I am curious. When you say that you need to go back and think about things, Sarah, again, just curious, what's coming up for you in those 2-3 days that makes you want to go and think about it, just to see if there's a way I can help at all. Do you hear how I asked it with absolute curiosity, absolute wonder, absolute, hey, I'm here just to offer a helping hand. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want the energy to match what I'm trying to accomplish, which is solving a problem. Okay, so you have to understand the protocols, the logic, and the tonality of objections. And the last point, this is it. You want to become very good at handling objections, then you shift into pre-handling, and then you become unstoppable. That's when you become the best person on any offer, as our people are. Like, the people we place, the people I help find roles, are the best people on their offers. Jabari, can I say this? Yeah, I can say. I already said his name. It's too late. He said this. But literally, the closer that was on the offer he was on got fired. Not fired. I guess it was fired. But they let him go after a month of him and Jabari closing. Because Jabari is just too freaking good. Closing at 40% plus. Shout out Jabari. We're going to get a case study with you in a bit, bro. But that's the standard we have. That's it. You need to become very good, shift into pre-handling after you become very good at objection handling, and then you become unstoppable. That's the game. That's how you're going to make money. That's what the journey looks like, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you learned. If this kind of went over your head, because I know this was a bit more advanced, but if it went over your head or you're wondering how you can learn more about objections, one, you can see the video that I posted before this one. I posted like the last video before this. I have my whole objection handling protocol there, just given. I teach you the logic. Actually, I explain it in depth. It's like a 50-minute video. You could watch that, 50 minutes, or join our school community. That's another big one. We have training that we have in the community. It's not even like a little community, hey, hang out and look at my stuff. It's like an entire course, like a program with hours and hours of video, for free. That's better than what most people have in their whatever $300 a month, $50 a month, $200 a month, like low ticket sales community. So, and I give it all away for free. So I give away our entire objection handling process for free. We had a guy who bumped his close percentage from 20% to 32% or 31% now, I think. He told me it was 31. I want to be exact about the numbers, 31% within about 2 weeks, just by going through our protocols that we have in the free community. So there's money there. Like, you'll make more money by just being in the free community. And then, of course, if you want to work with me, we'll talk to you about that in the community. But here, I got nothing to sell you. Just join the free community. I'll see you there. Okay, goodbye. Have a good one. Make some money. I want you to win. I want you to set yourself and your family and your future free. Okay, goodbye. I'll see you on the next one.